Marie Delna was so wonderful that I only wish that she had made more records. As I said at the beginning of this video, she made a handful of Pathés, really only 20 or 20 some, and just 5 cylinders and 3 discs for Edison, and it's not nearly enough. I mean, I just wish she had made so many more discs. And unfortunately, also the repertoire is somewhat repeated. She recorded "À mon fils" from Le Prophète 3 times. She recorded "Mon cœur" from Samson and Delilah 3 times, and that sort of thing. But it's really it's interesting to hear the different recordings, because, for example, her recording of "J'ai perdu mon Eurydice" from Orphée was there's a recording she made in Pathé in French, and her Edison recording is in Italian. The same thing is true with her "O mon Fernand" from La Favorite, which she sings for Pathé in French, and the Edison version is again in Italian. Because when she was, I suspect at least, that when she was singing at the Met, she was to sing both of these roles in Italian. And she learned the Italian roles specifically for the Met. But anyway, her recordings only take about a CD and a quarter. And of course, I wanted to find someone who was contemporaneous with Delna, who was also an interesting mezzo-soprano, who could be a suitable companion for Delna on this 2-CD reissue. And thinking about it, I came up with the idea of doing selected recordings by the French mezzo-soprano Jeanne de Lille. And de Lille is her entire last name. Her first name is Jeanne. And she lived about the same time as Delna did, and her career was almost spanned the same years as Delna's. She was not known outside of France, however. As I mentioned, Delna sang at Covent Garden, and she sang at the Met and other houses outside of France. Marie de Lille pretty much sang entirely in France, but she did sing in the provinces as well as Paris, and I believe she also made some appearances in Belgium. Marie de Lille's voice is of a lighter texture than Delna, and a little more subtle and delicate, and she brings a different characterization to the roles of let's say Charlotte in Werther and Carmen than Delna. So it's very interesting to compare the way they approach these 2 roles, especially, which they both were very famous Carmens and they both were very famous Charlottes. Marie de Lille sang the role of Charlotte beginning in 1904, and she was in a production that Massenet was very happy with, which included the tenor Léon Bell, and this was at the Comique. And by the way, Delna had pretty much given up Charlotte by 1904. She was doing other roles, and she had been singing quite a number of Charlottes in the 1890s, and by 1904 she had moved on. But it is very interesting to be able to have recordings of both of these singers singing from Werther, because Massenet coached both of them, and that really means something, and it's important. And but their characterizations are quite different. We're very lucky with Marie de Lille to have 2 extracts from Werther, one from Act 1 from the Clair de Lune scene, and then we have the Air de Larme from Act 3. Actually, Marie de Lille made a couple of other extracts, including a duet with Léon Bell, but I have not been able to find the recordings. Some of her records are extremely rare, and a number of them have not turned up, at least in the collecting world that I inhabit. I'm always looking for people who may be able to help me find some recordings that I haven't been able to locate. But so far, I have not been able to turn up some of the other extracts from Werther that were recorded by Marie de Lille. But it's fascinating to hear. And so we have on this fill up for CD2. I think there are about 18 or 20 recordings, and we hear extracts from Carmen, we hear extracts from Mignon, as I mentioned, Werther, one aria from Le Dragon de Villard, and several songs. We hear, actually it's very interesting because once again we can compare Delna and Marie de Lille because we have both of them singing Massenet's Les Enfants, which was one of Massenet's most popular songs. And again, I have to assume that Massenet coached both singers in singing this particular number. So may I remind you that Marston only presses 1,000 CDs. We only press 1,000 CDs of each title. And I hope that you will follow the internet buzz and that you will contact us and buy yours very soon.